So in the context of Kaggle, we have two data sets. One is the train data set and one is the test data set. So what are pre-processing steps that we do in the context for train, we have to be repeated against for test as well. Now this is only in the context of Kaggle because Kaggle gives you two data sets to play with. One data set, the train through which you're going to build the model, and you're going to test the model on the test data set, generate a set of results which you will submit as a finding to the Kaggle through which they are going to validate your model. Now that being said, this particular workflow looks incomplete if we do not add the test data set into the play. Now you might ask me, why should I add the test data set in the training experiment? It's simply because we are playing around with the data here. We are trying to create an average score for every title. So it makes sense for us to include the test data set into the mix so that our average score looks more right, because the test data set has got 178 data points and the trained data set we have about 891 data points. So having them together gives us more data set to play with and get better averages for each of those titles. So let's go ahead and search for the test data set, and there it is. Let's drag and drop the test data set onto the workspace, and let's connect the output of the test data set as as one of the inputs to the execute Python script. Now we already know that execute Python script accepts two inputs, which is data frame 1 and data frame 2. So far we have been playing with only one of those data sets, which is data frame 1. Now in order for us to effectively play around with the test data set, let's create a few more variables. Here I've created a test Titanic data set, and I've initialized it to data frame 2. So the one critical difference between the train and the test is the test doesn't have the survived data point, because that's what we are looking to predict. But for convenience purposes, what we are going to do is we are going to introduce a new variable or a new column in test Titanic DS survived, and we are going to initialize it to -1. Now this is just to help us distinguish both the data points. And then we are going to combine these data sets into one single data structure. And the way we are going to do is we are going to say train Titanic data DS is equal to train Titanic DS dot append of test Titanic DS. And this is possible because we have the same set of columns in both these data sets. If there was different columns, then it wouldn't work. Correct? So now so before we pass in the output, correct? So one important change that we need to make is we need to filter out those data points which has survived is equal to -1. Now simply because we are doing a training exercise, so we need to make sure we only get the training data, and that's what we are going to do here. So what we are going to do is we're going to filter, and we're going to say survived is equal to is not equal to -1. So there you go. So we did all the operations that we need to do in terms of grouping by title, finding out the mean age, and then appending, making sure that we apply the missing age data points with mean age, and then finally we kind of reverted back to the test training data set, correct, wherein we say, hey, give me only those data points where the survived is not equal to -1, and that's precisely why we had initialized it to -1 here. Now I think we are done with the script, okay, and let's execute this particular component and let's see if it yields the result that we were expecting it to yield. And there you go. The workflow did execute, this component did execute successfully. And let's just visualize this particular data point to make sure we get only the data set from the training data set. And as you can see here, we have exactly 891 data points, and let's check survived to make sure we do not have any of those minus ones. Okay, absolutely. So we do not have any of those minus ones. And let's cross check age to make sure. Yep, so we do not have missing values. So let's do a little bit of analysis, and let's say um, let's compare age with title, and let's see what happens. And I believe it is going to draw a box plot, correct? And you can see the average age of master kind of reflects between 0 and 12, and the rest of the others too. So it gives you a perspective in terms of how the data has changed, correct? And then let's close the window. So we are done here. So what we have essentially done here is we have combined the train and the test data set, and made sure, correct, we got the right um, mean of the passenger, right, mean age of the passenger against the titles. So having additional 178 data points is going to make sure that your averages are going to be much better than the earlier averages. So let's rerun the workflow one more time, correct? And once we have rerun the workflow, let's go back and check on the valid model. Okay, and there you go. So yeah, the metrics are intact. So in this particular context, the way we grouped the test and the train was to facilitate a medium through which we are able to address the passengers who have missing values, and this essentially has to be copied back into the test experiment to kind of reflect the same thing. Right? So this becomes a one single strategy that you use both for the train data and as well as the test data. And there are certain components which are redundant at this point in time. We'll leave them as it is at this point in time so that we don't have to rerun the workflow. Like for example, the clean missing data for age is a redundant component. It's not going to do anything because all the age that were empty at this point at an earlier point has already been filled, and hence this component is going to be redundant. It's not going to do anything at this point in time. So so we are happy with the model, and what we want to do is we want to go ahead and save this model, and I'm going to save as train model, and I'm going to overwrite the model that we had saved earlier. Correct? I'm just going to provide some comments to say that hey, um, filled in the missing values of age, with a more robust strategy. And let's not forget, we also removed the outlier. Correct? If you remember, we removed the outlier, which was a passenger who survived at the age of 80. And we're just going to say OK. And the model has been saved. So next thing that we are going to do is we are going to copy a set of transformations as earlier, and we are going to paste it in the test experiment. And let's go ahead and do